The lake glimmered under the morning sun, encircled by mountains that sheltered it from the world. It looked peaceful, but the calmness masked the chaos that had unfolded just hours earlier during a violent storm. As the first rays of light danced on the water, two figures stood on a nearby rise, framed against the backdrop of the lake. One was Ibarra, a young man of strong character, and the other was a schoolmaster with a humble appearance and an air of melancholy. "This is the exact spot where your father's body was thrown into the water," the schoolmaster said somberly. "It was a sad day for our town. From here your father's story ended. But I remember it well because Lieutenant Guevara brought me here. I felt it was important to accompany him, to show respect for all he did for us." Moved by the schoolmaster's words, Ibarra tightly grasped his hand. "You have helped me remember my father and his legacy," he said thoughtfully. "It's hard to believe he is gone, but I want to carry on his work. I want to know what issues you're facing at the school." The schoolmaster nodded, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "When your father was alive, he was a great help to the school and its students. He understood the value of education in shaping lives. He provided resources, housing for me, and ensured the children had materials to study. He kept faith in them." Ibarra raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What about now? How are the children doing?" "Now they get along as best as they can," the schoolmaster replied. "I have more than 200 students registered, but only about 25 actually attend classes regularly. Many are forced to work in the fields or are too distracted by various struggles to focus on education." "Why is that? What keeps them away?" Ibarra pressed, his determination to understand the educational barriers evident in his tone. The schoolmaster sighed deeply. "The reasons are complex and tied to their lives. Their torn clothes and downcast eyes tell a story of hardship and indifference. Many see school as a waste of time, a place where foreign words are parroted without understanding the value. It is difficult to compare this place to places like Germany, where a child can study for years and gain knowledge that truly enriches their lives." Ibarra frowned, contemplating this. "I want to know the specific issues at hand. My father fought for education. If I can continue his work, if I can help, then perhaps I can make a difference." The schoolmaster smiled faintly. "The country will remember you fondly if you pursue your father's beautiful vision. But first, let me tell you the obstacles we face. Education won't improve without substantial support. Even if we manage to gather students, other things attract their interest far more than learning. The lack of resources is disheartening." "Why haven't you tried to change this?" Ibarra asked, curiosity piqued. "I have, but I struggle against bias and systems of power. The education framework is restrictive," he explained. "I hold classes under the convento, squeezed between the padre's carriage and the weight of his authority. The children love to read aloud, but it annoys the padre. He often yells at them when he becomes irritated, and that undermines my authority as a teacher. If a teacher loses respect, it becomes impossible to educate the children effectively." Utilizing the moment to share further difficulties, the schoolmaster continued, "When I've tried to reform the curriculum to make learning relevant and engaging, I'm often laughed at. I began teaching Spanish, believing it essential, despite the locals not understanding it at all. I simplified lessons, teaching words and phrases rather than strict grammar. At first, some children made real progress." Trying to lighten a tense atmosphere, Ibarra chuckled. "How did that go?" The schoolmaster hesitated, then launched into his recollection with a mix of embarrassment and indignation. "I had to meet with Padre Damaso after implementing my methods. Of course, he found it amusing that I was teaching Spanish. I greeted him in Spanish, but he mocked me instead, insisting I fetch him for a kiss on the hand, only to pull it away laughing maniacally, claiming I was trying to shine in borrowed finery." Ibarra suppressed a smile, picturing the scene. The senior sacristan was there, witnessing the humiliation. When I expressed my frustration, the padre scolded me, saying I should stick to my native tongue and that my attempts at teaching Spanish were unnecessary. He even compared me unfavorably to a fictitious teacher who could not read. That's terrible, Ibarra interjected, anger starting to boil within him. The schoolmaster nodded, memories still fresh in his mind. Indeed, it was disheartening. Here I was trying to serve the community, a teacher dedicated to helping children. And I was dismissed and belittled. The power structures are against you. At the time, I had to keep quiet to protect my position. The curate holds all the cards, and it's my livelihood at stake. Ibarra's expression turned somber. It sounds like an uphill battle against a deeply entrenched system. Exactly, the schoolmaster responded sadly. After that incident, I found myself second-guessing everything, questioning my place in this profession. I thought of abandoning it, seeking another path like my predecessor who left to engage in the tobacco trade. But I couldn't. I have a mother, and I knew how proud she was of my dedication. She sacrificed everything for my education. I couldn't bear letting her down. What about those children? Ibarra pressed. Don't you feel a responsibility toward them? The schoolmaster's eyes lit up momentarily at the mention of his students. Of course, the children are my heart. Each day, I tried not to succumb to despair. Even after that humiliating exchange, I focused on learning and gaining knowledge. I would not let ignorance define my teaching. I studied late into the night, borrowing books from an old sage in town, exploring everything I could get my hands on. I began to grasp the true nature of education. That's admirable, Ibarra exclaimed. What changes did you implement after your self-examination? I became determined to eliminate physical punishment, a widespread practice in schools. I realized that fear does not lead to learning. It leads to resentment. I wanted to foster an environment where confidence could thrive. Bold move, Ibarra acknowledged. But how did the students respond? At first, many of them struggled with the changes. Some even left the school entirely. But I saw improvement in those who stayed. I focused on building their confidence, making lessons about exploration rather than rote learning. Ibarra's eyes sparkled with hope. And were you successful? The schoolmaster nodded, a flicker of pride shining through the sadness. Slowly, we built a sense of community. Children started attending regularly, and those who were praised in class became motivated to perform better. However, word of my methods eventually got back to the curate, who called me in for another meeting. Ibarra furrowed his brow. What happened this time? The curate was furious. He accused me of ruining the children and warned that I was not fulfilling my duties as a teacher. He stated that the father who spares the rod spoils the child, quoting scripture as if it were the law of nature itself. The schoolmaster chuckled bitterly. He lost no time demanding I revert to the old ways of flogging and discipline. That cannot be allowed to continue. What did you do? Ibarra urged, concern etched on his face. The schoolmaster sighed deeply. I tried to persist, to hold on to what little progress I had made. But soon, parents began to stand in line under the convento, lining up to call for traditional methods. Some openly criticized me for not enforcing discipline. They argued that children needed strict teachers to learn anything worthwhile. And what could you do? Ibarra questioned. I felt trapped and defeated, the schoolmaster lamented. Even after the effort I made to change the methods, I had to abandon them all. So I reluctantly returned to the methods of punishment to appease the parents and the local authority. I brought back the whips to reestablish the old ways of fear. But the light in the children's eyes faded, and I could see their spirit crushed. Ibarra looked disturbed by the schoolmaster's plight. It sounds like you were forced to betray your beliefs for survival. Yes, it was painful, the schoolmaster admitted. I had to sacrifice my ideals for the sake of my position and the expectations of the parents. Those innocent children had just begun to find joy in learning, and their tears haunted me. I could not escape the guilt. It felt like a betrayal. Was the pain worth it? Ibarra asked softly. It broke my heart, even as I tried to reason with myself, the schoolmaster replied. But I had to eat to survive. I couldn't let anything happen to my family, All their fears and prejudices were projected onto me, and I felt powerless. My 3 years of frustration and dedication were consumed by the harsh realities of tradition. Ibarra shook his head in disbelief. What about the brighter students? Those who shone through the difficulties? With a heavy sigh, the schoolmaster explained, while many left the school, a few remained. But they carried not only the burden of punishment but also their parents' expectations. They learned to internalize their sorrow and resentment. I hoped they could at least remember me fondly, even if it meant suffering through the old ways. And then what? Ibarra urged him to continue. When I returned from being ill, the numbers had dwindled. I had lost more than half my students, the schoolmaster said, anguish evident in his voice. Those who remained looked at me with indifference. They were just there to escape work. The bright students left, unable to tolerate the beatings any longer. That's frustrating, Ibarra exclaimed, frustration boiling over again. I tried to salvage what I could for my remaining students. I wanted them to take something useful from our time together, but the old methods make progress feel impossible. We are still stuck reading materials we don't understand and memorizing passages that have no relevance to our lives, the schoolmaster lamented. Just because progress seems far away doesn't mean it won't happen, Ibarra remarked encouragingly. Perhaps the town hall meeting will present some hope for change. The schoolmaster looked skeptical. They'll likely just recycle my plan, dismissing it like they did before, he replied, worry clouding his voice. Let us remain hopeful. Change is gradual but possible, Ibarra insisted. You have proven that you care deeply for your students. The schoolmaster paused and added with a touch of firmness, it is hard not to believe in hope when moments like these remind me why I started teaching in the first place. Those children deserve better. Ibarra nodded in agreement, determined to support the schoolmaster in his pursuit of educational reform. The sun had risen higher in the sky as they made their way towards the town hall, both men reflecting on the struggles they faced and the small glimmers of hope that still shone through the darkness. They were ready to confront the obstacles together, uniting in their belief that change was necessary, not just for the children, but for the future of their community.